I first remember walking this path when I was 5 years old. I was supposed to be raking seaweed off the beach. But the whole thing of it was my curiosity got the best of me, and I started off towards Seal Rock, which was about a half-mile away. For a 5-year-old kid, that's a long way to walk. When I finally got there and turned around and looked at where I'd come from, it really scared me. But memories like this, you always seem to go back to them, you gravitate to them. Here I go again, in another pathway.
I shall impersonate a man. Come, enter into my imagination and see him. Bony, hollow-faced, eyes that burn with the fire of inner vision. He conceives the strangest project ever imagined. To become a knight-errant and sally forth into the world righting all wrongs. His name, Don Quixote de la Mancha. Hear me now, the bleak and unbearable world, thou art base and debauched as can be. And a knight with his banners all bravely unfurled now hurls down his gauntlet to thee. I am Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha, my destiny calls and I go. And the wild wings of fortune shall carry me onward, oh, whithersoever they blow. Whithersoever they blow. Onward to glory.
I'm not with you right now, but I hope you'll remember me. I was born in Huntington Beach, California, on a small ranch at the corner of Quincy and Bouchard. I was raised in Laguna Beach. We first moved to Canyon Acres, Laguna, and then moved to 617 South Coast Boulevard. My father's people came from the Lake Como area of Italy. My great-great-grandfather was an Italian mercenary. He was hired by the French to fight the Mexicans. The Mexicans won, he was incarcerated, and he was placed in a concentration camp in Guadalajara, Mexico. In Guadalajara, he met a small Indian gal, married her, and then had my grandfather, Andres Arevalos, who married Guadalupe Arevalos, and he in turn wanted better opportunities for his family, so he moved to Seal Beach, California, and worked for the railroad. Seal Beach, 11 children were born, 2 of which died. The oldest was my father, Fred Julian Arevalos. He in turn was a very aggressive young man and was kind of the apple of my grandfather's eye. My grandfather then moved to Talbot, California, which later became Fountain Valley, and he in turn was one of the co-founders. He was a migrant picker. They saved their money, they built a ranch, they went to the Imperial Valley to do some harvesting, and the situation was my uncle, who was left there as the caretaker, burned it down. When they got back, my father had to go to work. He was only in the 6th grade. He worked from a picker all the way up to a foreman of a ranch. He was fortunate enough to meet the Vincents, Leroy Vincent, who also owned Pacific Drive-In Theaters. Mr. Vincent became discouraged with ranching, so they moved to Laguna Beach. My parents lived in the canyon. Leroy Vincent lived on the beachfront. He became allergic to the salt water, and so he moved up to Temple Hills, which is an area in Laguna, and rented the house to my dad. It was a beach house. We were the only Hispanic Italians living on the beach with celebrities. My dad was a pretty aggressive guy. He worked his way up from being a chauffeur and a bodyguard of the Vincents to actually doing projectionist work at the local theaters, South Coast Theater in Laguna Beach. My dad wanted better opportunities, so then he went on to become a builder. He built homes for many celebrities in Laguna Beach because the straight community wouldn't support a minority. So therefore, he built homes for Howard Hughes, Gene Peters, Betty Davis, Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, etc. My dad was a PR guy. He was very much respected in the community and everyone trusted his word. My mother's ancestry came from Medina, Saudi Arabia. Many people say they were Turks. They became Jews and they moved to Belgium, and from Belgium they moved to the northern part of Spain, which is Galicia, the province of Lugo. There, because they were Jews and the Catholics were so strong, they were converted over to Catholicism. My grandfather was given to the church. He became a Jesuit priest. He obtained 2 PhDs. He spoke 7 languages. He, in turn, while a priest, was difficult to handle. And in Spain, the hierarchy moved him over to Cuba, thinking that he could resolve his indiscretions. But the situation was he didn't, and Cuba moved him back to Spain. While he was in Spain, he went to Catalonia and married my grandmother, Julia Barón. Now, Ricardo Ramon Lopez was a very aggressive guy, so off they went to Mexico. He taught at the University of Mexico, philosophy and various other humanities. He always was looking for the greener pasture. So he had an opportunity in Austin, Texas, went to Austin, Texas, taught at the University of Texas. He taught General Pershing and Major Eisenhower Spanish. He wanted to augment his income, so he became a Baptist minister. He wanted more money, so he converted from a Baptist minister to a Methodist one. He ended up in San Antonio, and that's where my mother was born, Blanche Olivia Arevalos. She, in turn, was a very aggressive little girl, but the situation was my grandfather made too many mistakes in San Antonio and alienated himself with the German community. The Germans tossed him out of San Antonio, and he ended up in Azusa, California, as a Presbyterian minister. From Azusa, California, he moved to the small town called Talbot, which later became Fountain Valley. Oddly enough, that's where my father lived. My mother, in turn, went to Garden Grove High School, was heavily involved in girls' athletics, was a star athlete, field hockey, tennis, baseball, basketball. Went on to 1 semester of college, met my father at a dance, and before you know it, they ran off to Yuma, Arizona and got married. Laguna Beach was possibly one of my favorite areas in my entire life. I was a lifeguard at about 4 different beaches: Woods Cove, Sleepy Hollow, Main Beach, and Divers Cove. When I was a little kid, about 10 years old, I used to dive for abs with a Tahitian guy by the name of Max Lupin. Max Lupin's father was the head chef at the Victor Hugo Inn. So we used to dive for abs near Seal Rock, or called Bird Rock, take the abs up to Mr. Lupin prior to lunchtime, maybe 2 hours, and then he would pound out the abs and sell them, and then fix us a nice little lunch. Many of my experiences on the beach area here were also qualifying to be a lifeguard, which meant swimming from Bird or Seal Rock all the way down to Sleepy Hollow, reversing field, coming back and running down the beach. Many instances I used to come down here. Primarily, when I was a small kid, I used to sell the Herald Examiner. So I would go to all the bars in downtown Laguna Beach to sell the Herald Examiner. I would end up at the Camille's, which was a homosexual nightclub, and they would buy all my papers from me. So therefore I made a profit. But this beach represents not only lifeguarding, but when I used to sell newspapers as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid. It was a good experience. I enjoyed it. Met a lot of people, a lot of friends. This is 617 South Coast Boulevard. This is where I was raised. I was here from the age of 4 until about 18 years old. The house to the rear of my location here was similar to our house that was located at this very spot. My mother was a good pianist, and she more or less demanded that we all play the piano. So here at this location, I played the violin, my brother Robert Earl played the piano, my brother Richard Raymond, he played the saxophone, and my younger brother Dennis Michael, he played the trumpet. There were a lot of unusual situations happened here. We lived amongst all the celebrities, Betty Davis, Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, Slim Somerville, Helen Traubel, and that gave me work. I worked cleaning beaches, washing cars, and various odds and ends. I, in turn, was very fortunate to move down into the chauffeur's quarters when my Uncle Gilbert moved out of the house and went to live in Fountain Valley. When I lived there, I used to take up the activities of sneaking out at night. I used to go out and carouse the area in Laguna. And I used to sneak back in because my mother had the key hanging by the electrical light meter. But she caught on to me, and she in turn hid the key. And she would wait for me in the kitchen. So then I started coming in the kitchen window. So what happened was she used to plant pots and pans there and catch me when I would be making a lot of noise, chase me to my room with a broom, and beat me as I was trying to get away from her. My father was a very unusual guy. He loved to camp. So from here, we used to go camping to Idlewild, Big Bear, to Ortega, to all the various areas around the Southland. And during the summer, for 3 weeks out of the year, we would go to the national parks, Yosemite, Sequoia, Grand Canyon, Utah, and Oregon. It was here also that I, in turn, became what is called a lifeguard. I used to lifeguard the beaches that I previously mentioned from here, but I used to also surf down there and spearfish. It was an experience that I'll never forget. As I mentioned earlier, the house to the rear was similar to the house we lived at, which was located right here at 617 South Coast Boulevard. Mrs. Beckwith lived in that house. Next door, the building, which is now white condominiums, was Rand McNally, the people that made the McNally maps. The house over from her was Slim Somerville. He was a star on the movie All Quiet on the Western Front. 3 houses down from there was Betty Davis. 5 houses down there from there was Clifton Webb, who starred in the movie Sitting Pretty. So we had movie stars all up and down this area, which was referred to as Sleepy Hollow. Went to Laguna Beach High School. I was class president for 6 years, from 7th grade to my senior year in high school. I was boys commissioner of athletics. I was on student court, student council. I lettered 4 years in football and track, and I was captain of the track team for 2 years in a row. We won the Orange League in track for 4 years in a row, and won the Orange League football championship 4 years in a row. 1 year, we went all the way to the CIF finals, and we were beaten by Brawley, which we had earlier beaten, and that was very disappointing. I also here, before I graduated, I was selected by LULAC to be the recipient of the LULAC Hispanic Scholarship Award. I was the first Hispanic in Orange County to win a scholarship. Myself and a fellow by the name of Wally Davis. He was a quarterback at Garden Grove. It was unusual from the standpoint that there had been no Hispanic awards prior to this time. But from here, I went to Orange Coast College. I went there on a scholarship to play football and track, and I was relegated to second string, and I didn't like that. So I stopped football and went out for cross country and finished second in the state of California. 10th in the state of California. Second in short course cross country. I was lousy in school, so I failed several classes, so I figured I'd have to do something different. So I talked to my Uncle Gilbert, who had been in the military, United States Army, and my Uncle Mike, who was 11th Airborne. They told me, go into the service, they have GI benefits. So that's what I did. I left Orange Coast College, went into the service, trained on the West Coast, went to the East Coast and the South, trained there, ended up in Germany. I was in the service for 6 years. 3.5 years I was active, and 2.5 years I was in active reserves. I worked at Disneyland for about 6 years. I started there when I got out of the service. I was a tour guide, a narrator. I also did tour guiding throughout the park. Took celebrities around, like President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, Senator Kennedy, Charlton Heston, Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, Paul Newman. I took a lot of celebrities through the park. Enjoyed it a great deal, learned a lot. So the situation was, and when I came back to Southern California, I in turn had to look for another college. I wanted to go to Long Beach State, but it was too big. San Jose was 25 to 30-some thousand students. I didn't like that. You didn't really get the hands-on type of education. So I found a small college up in Fullerton called Orange County College, which eventually became Cal State Fullerton. So I went to that school. There were 15 to 20 students per class, which was incredible. I was in classes of over 100. The situation that made it interesting there, I could participate in all the activities. I formed a local fraternity, which in turn became a national fraternity, Phi Kappa Tau. I was president of the fraternity. I was also a pledge trainer. I formed Society for the Advancement of Management, which was a professional business organization. I was nominated and placed on Who's Who among students in universities and colleges in the United States. Graduated there in 1963. Went back to work at Disneyland and met a gal by the name of Ellen DeLong, married her, had 3 children, Mark, Christopher, Arevalos, Wendy Laurel, and Michael Andrew. They were really joys of my life. I enjoyed them a great deal. I was divorced suddenly after about 14 years, and that was devastating. It hit me not only financially, but also psychologically. I moved in with my parents in Laguna Beach, and then eventually relocated to Orange in a condo. And then I met Dorothy Mosser, who became the love of my life. And my adventures started with her. She skied. She taught me how to ski. We skied Europe, the western United States, Canada. We cross-country skied up in the Big Bear Mountains and also in Colorado and Canada. Prior to marrying Dorothy, I in turn did marathons. I did about 4 years of marathons, 15 years of 10K races, and then started in triathlons. I did about 11 years of triathlons. I claimed to glory there. I finished them all. I did everything up to a half Ironman, but my expertise was short course triathlons, and I came in second in the state of California in my age group in the Big Bear short course triathlon. We left Laguna Beach High School. We're now here in Dana Point, California. This is where I used to do a lot of kayaking, biking, running, etc. A lot of fond memories here. They started as early as when I was a small kid working for Eddie Hernandez, and on Sundays selling the LA Examiner and Herald Express. It was a situation where I was exposed to the abalone and spearfishing. I used to do abalone and spearfishing over here in this area, which is now a wilderness refuge. My parents had moved from 617 South Coast Boulevard to Mystic Hills and built a home overlooking the Festival of Arts and had a magnificent 180-degree view of the ocean. It was fantastic. I worked for my dad for around 4 months in building houses and that type of thing, and then went back to Orange Coast College and then on to San Jose State. San Jose, I went out for football and track, but the competition was too severe, and I always liked to participate. Here I was just sitting on the bench. So I dropped athletics completely, but San Jose won the NCAA in track, came in second behind Notre Dame in the United States Independent League. It was quite an experience. A friend of mine, Dan Gomez, told me to conclude this with a favorite poem, but I remember a prayer that my grandmother sent away from a Sears and Roebuck catalog, which went, "Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take."
Là dove il mare luccica e grida forte il vento, c'è una vecchia terrazza vicino al golfo di Sorrento. Un uomo abbraccia una ragazza dopo che aveva pianto, poi si schiarisce la voce ed incomincia il canto. Te voglio bene assai, ma tanto, tanto bene sai, è una catena ormai che scioglie sangue in te bene sai.
When you're all alone, far away from home, there's a gift the angels send when you're alone. Every day must end, but the night's our friend. Angels always send a star when you're alone. At night when I'm alone, I lie awake and wonder which of them belongs to me. Which one, I wonder. And any star I choose watches over me, so I know I'm not alone when I'm here on my own. Isn't that a wonder? When you're alone, you're not alone. Not really.
God bless you. That's it. I'm done. No?